Hi, Lina.
Hi, Evan. But
Hi.
I'll do so she will be logging in right now.
So we're missing.
By 2.5 billion years ago, The remaining banded iron formation was a few kilometers thick. Familiar surface environment. Such is the coevolution of the Earth and its inhabitants.
Last month, many of our members received layoff notices, and others received notices that would have resulted in them being demoted to low positions with a corresponding pay cut of 20 to 25%. Others were facing going from full-time to part-time and losing their medical and retirement benefits. This caused a great deal of pain and distress for our employees. As a union, it is our philosophy that we're stronger together. We have worked with management to come to an agreement tonight that all of our members will take a cut in our net pay so that we minimize the impact on as many of our members as possible. We were not able to save all of the jobs that received notices. However, this agreement does rescind the layoff notices, positions downgrades for about 2/3 of the positions that would have been impacted. We are very aware that not all employees are happy with this agreement. However, by moving forward with this agreement, all employees will be part of the solution in balancing the budget, from executive management, full-time and part-time employees. This agreement was presented to our union board of directors and passed with no opposing votes. We ask that council approve this agreement that will help to protect jobs. We also ask for a commitment in restoring all financial loss to employee when city finances are restored. AFSCME is committed to assisting and be part of the solution. We ask that moving forward, management continue to meet with us to help rectify solutions pertaining to our employees. We are hopeful that in the future, the city will return to a safer and strong city. In unity, Laura Logan, President, Employee Association. That was the only comment I received for the and I will read the items for the closed session. Item number 1, the City Council will confer with its labor negotiator with respect to labor negotiations pertaining to A, Memorandum of Understanding on behalf of the part-time employees, Memorandum of Understanding on behalf of the management and non-management full-time employees, and compensation and benefits for the unrepresented full-time executive management employees. Item number 2, the City Council will confer with its real property negotiator with respect to real estate negotiations within properties located at A, 6364 Zindel Street, Commerce, B, 5550 Harbor Street, Commerce, and Eastern Avenue, C, 5625 Gilson Street, D, 5555 Gilson Street, Commerce. 3, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, one case, East Yard Communities for Mental Justice versus the City of Commerce. Item number 4.
Edgar, can you mute yourself, please?
Item number 4, conference with legal counsel, existing litigation, one case, Coalition for Responsible Equitable Economic Development, Los Angeles versus City of Commerce. That's it.
That's it. Okay, we're now recessed to closed session. I'll see you guys on the closed session link.
going to do the announcement or we're doing it after the meeting?
I'm sorry, we can report out from closed session. Go ahead, Norma.
Thank you, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. City closed session discussions commenced at 5:14 p.m. this evening with all members of City Council participating via conference. As to item 1A, 1B, and 1C, City Manager Edgar Cisneros provided a briefing and update to members of the council. It is to be noted that items 1A and 1B are also on the open session as agenda item number 8 for City Council's consideration. No reportable action was taken, nothing further to report on this item. As to item 2 on the closed session agenda, both City Manager Edgar Cisneros and Jose Jimenez, Director of Economic Development and Planning, provided an update and briefing to City Council concerning items 2A, 2B, 2C, and 2D as presented in the closed session agenda. Updates and briefings were provided. No reportable action was taken. Nothing further to report. As to items 3 and 4, City Attorney's Office provided a briefing and update to members of the council. No reportable action was taken. Nothing further to report. Closed session discussions concluded at 6:14 p.m. And that concludes my report, Mayor.
Thank you so much, Norma. Okay, so now the open session meeting will get started. Can I please have a roll call?
Councilmember Guimede,
Here.
Councilmember Mendoza,
Present.
Councilmember Soria,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Here.
and Mayor Altamirano.
Here. Okay, we'll go ahead and open up public comment. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, I do have several. The first one is from Employee Association, Laura Logan. Mayor and City Council, the past 4 months have been challenging for all of us. The shutdown has led to many very difficult choices that have had to be taken. AFSCME Local 773 and city management have met on regular basis during this crisis in order to negotiate an agreement that helps get the city through this while protecting our members as much as possible. Last month, many of our members received layoff notices, and others received notices that would have resulted in them being demoted to lower positions with a corresponding pay cut of 20 to 25%. Others were facing going from full-time to part-time and losing their medical and retirement benefits. This caused a great deal of pain and distress for our employees. As a union, it is our philosophy that we're stronger together. We have worked with management to come up an agreement tonight that all of our members will take a cut in our net pay so that we minimize the impact on as many of our members as possible. We were not able to save all of the jobs that received layoff notices. However, this agreement does rescind the layoff notices and position downgrades for about 2/3 of the positions that would have been impacted. We are very aware that not all employees are happy with this agreement. However, by moving forward with this agreement, all employees will be part of the solution in balancing the budget, from executive management, full-time and part-time employees. This agreement was presented to our union board of directors and passed with no opposing votes. We ask that council approves this agreement that will help to protect jobs. We also ask for a commitment in restoring all financial loss to employees when city finances are restored. AFSCME is committed to assist and be part of the solution. We ask that moving forward, management continue to meet with us to help rectify solutions pertaining to our employees. We are hopeful that in the future, the city will return to a safer and strong city. In unity, Laura Logan, President of Employee Association. And I wanted to mention that the items on the agenda and the consent calendar, and there were finalized changes. So we have a clean copy. If anybody wants to request a clean copy of the letter, they need to email city clerk. Next comment is from Lori Miles, Mayor and the City Council regarding item number 8. Staff report mentioned that the employees did not have a chance to vote on this item. If the city employees did not have a chance to vote on this item and no input was received from city employees, I am asking that the city council postpone this item and allow employees of the city to vote on this agreement first. That's about the union agreement. The next from Desiree Pedrazar. Thank you, dear council. My name is Desiree Pedrazar. I reside at 6357 Zindel Avenue, Commerce, California. Today I will be speaking on behalf of our essential workers, our City of Commerce Transportation Department. The Transportation Department frontline workers have been working without a stop in our transportation system for even one day since COVID-19 began. They have been transporting passengers and exposing themselves and working in high-risk conditions without asking for any premium pay, which most frontline workers are receiving for the risks they are taking by showing up to work on a daily basis. It is very unfortunate that tonight you will be reviewing item number 8. Item number 8 is asking our essential workers to make an additional 14% contribution to their retirement. So if this is approved, the essential workers will be going from a 7% contribution to a 21% contribution into their retirement. That will equal all essential employees to tripling their contribution, and in some cases going from a 200 contribution to 600 contribution every 2 weeks. That equals a monthly $800 pay cut. Do you think this is fair? I sure don't think so. And this is why most essential employees feel helpless that the union believes this is the way to save their job. Yes, their jobs. Once again, item number 8 is not fair, especially to frontline workers that do not have a voice through this union. Essential workers are not asking for a raise of premium pay. All that the workers, all that they're asking that they have an opportunity to vote on their actions, decisions they have brought in front of council meeting regarding item 8. The union will tell you that they did not even bother running it by any essential worker. Please ask the union questions. Ask them whose jobs are saving tonight. I guarantee you that it will not be an essential worker's job. I understand we're facing difficult times, but we need to take care of our essential workers and not kick them onto their knees when they're our frontline workers, working on a daily basis, taking care of our community. The 7% pay increase that the union is proposing will not equal a fraction of the 14% then essential workers will contribute into their retirement. And essential workers don't want a raise. Thank you for your time, and may God bless all of you and your families. I would appreciate if this was read today. Next, from Charlotte Lopez. Dear Honorable City Council, tonight for your consideration is a resolution to approve further cuts that will affect essential workers, like transportation and public safety employees. In reality, instead of receiving cuts, these essential employees should receive hazard pay or premium pandemic pay. But have they quit? No. They continue to risk their lives every day for the transportation needs of the public, to keep our buses clean and in safe working condition. Bus operators take other essential workers to their employment and bring families to the grocery store for their shopping. Public safety works to keep our neighborhoods safe. Of course, I see that the city takes safety precautions to protect them, but the danger is there. They can contract a deadly contagion while at work. I love the dial ride because it takes seniors to work, to keep the economy going, and keep seniors alive and healthy by taking them to dialysis. If you want to make the best use of city resources, the dial ride could take our senior delivery meals and deliver them safely and effectively within their job class. Transportation and public safety employees are heroes. They're brave. I ask that the heroes get a hero Manual's Dental Lab. And I believe I already read Desiree comments, so that was the last one.
Any more come up, just let me know. So then at this time, we'll go ahead and close public comment. We're gonna move over to consent calendar. And right now we have items 1 through 6. Is there a motion to approve 1 through 6?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I'd like to pull item number 4.
Okay.
And then I think, is item 8 in consent or is that for discussion?
Item number 8 is in schedule matters.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we're pulling number 4. So do I hear a motion to approve the rest except number 4?
I would move to approve.
I'll second. Soria.
Can I please have a roll call?
Councilmember Argumedo,
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Sawyer,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reboer. She's on mute. Yes. And Mayor
Okay. And yes. Okay. Motion passes. So now we're gonna go to item number 4. Who's gonna report on item number 4?
Mr. Mayor, before we proceed, my purpose for pulling the item this evening wasn't for discussion, but it does present a conflict for me. So I'm going to recuse myself from this discussion. I'm going to actually leave the Zoom meeting. So if you can, once conversation has been concluded, if you can send me a message, I could rejoin the Zoom meeting. So that's the purpose for my pulling this item this evening. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay. So we have is there a motion to approve number 4?
So moved.
I would second that.
And please have roll call.
Councilmember Argumedo,
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reboer,
Yes.
and Mayor Altamirano.
Yes. Motion passes, and we're gonna move over to schedule matters. And I am going to text Councilmember. Sorry.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. We're here this evening to provide you an update on the progress of the Commerce in Motion
Glad.
comprehensive. Yes, sir.
We're still waiting for Soria to come on so we can start this.
He's in, Mayor.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Okay, we're good. All right, so we'll start with item number 7. So go ahead, Claude. You're good now.
Okay. Good evening, Council, Mayor. We're here this evening to provide you an update on the progress of the Commerce in Motion Comprehensive Operational Analysis Project. To briefly recap, in April 2020, the city hired the consulting firm of Nelson Nygaard to assess the existing condition of the city's transit and dollar ride service and explore ways to improve the overall system. It should be noted that the data analyzed and referenced in the existing condition report is pre-COVID-19. Utilizing historical ridership and performance trends helps us make better and informed recommendations for your consideration. Nelson Nygaard has completed phase 1 of the public outreach component of the project. And I must take this opportunity to thank all the residents, community, local businesses, and our daily commuters to our city for participating in the surveys and taking the time to speak with us over the phone. Their input is vital to the success of this project and truly appreciate it. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Hazel Sher of Nelson Nygaard, who will proceed with the presentation and share their findings. Hazel?
Thanks, Claude, and good afternoon, members of the City Council. It's an honor to be here tonight chatting with you about this project. So just to introduce myself quickly, I am a transportation planner with Nelson Nygaard Consulting Associates. And as Claude mentioned, we started this project a couple of months ago, joined by my colleague, Peter Soderberg, who has helped me with a bunch of the technical analysis on this project. And we're at a sort of crucial point in the process where we've done a lot of background analysis, getting to know the system and some of the opportunities and challenges. And so we're here this evening to give you a brief overview of what we've learned so far, and then to ask for some of your guidance as we move into the next phase of the process regarding how we might structure some of our recommendations. So I'm going to go ahead and share a presentation. And then give you a brief presentation, then we'll pause for some discussion. So let me get that up on the screen. All right. So Commerce in Motion is a comprehensive operational analysis, which is a bit of a mouthful, but basically means that we are taking a really close look at every single line that Commerce Municipal Bus Lines operates and trying to understand its strengths and weaknesses and make recommendations to improve the system as a whole. So we're looking at the effectiveness of the existing service. We're looking at the environment that underneath the transit service in terms of the demographics and travel patterns of residents of Commerce. A very important component of this is having conversations with the community about how transit can be improved. And the ultimate outcome is to provide the city with a roadmap for rebuilding and transforming City of Commerce transit, especially in these times where services are reduced and there's a need to take stock of what are sort of the most essential and most effective ways of serving the community's mobility needs. So to start us off, I've got a map on the screen that shows the average daily ridership on City of Commerce transit. So the circle size corresponds to the number of people that board at each of those bus stops. And as you can see, there are some pretty significant ridership generators, such as the Commerce Shopping Center, the Citadel Outlets, and the casino. But there are also some places that don't see very much ridership. So all these circles that have a white interior indicate a place where, on average, there are no people getting on and off on a daily basis. So this gives us an indication of where some of the important trip generators are, but also maybe where some corridors could be reworked to provide more effective service. Over the past several years, the fixed route service has seen a pretty significant decline in ridership. So between 2013 and 2019, there was about a 33% decline in the fixed route ridership. And I will say that this is not unique to Commerce. Both in LA County and across the country, bus ridership has been on the decline due to a number of economic and market factors, as well as changing preferences about travel patterns amongst our population. But an interesting corollary to that, to offset that trend, is taking a deeper look at the Dial-A-Ride. So Commerce operates a Dial-A-Ride service that's open to seniors and persons with disabilities. And the service enables people to go both within Commerce and outside of Commerce. And Dial-A-Ride makes up a small portion of the overall ridership. You can see it on the left in the dark green. It's orders of magnitude fewer riders on a yearly basis. However, the trend with Dial-A-Ride ridership has, which was declining along with fixed route ridership, really reversed in 2017. And that was the result of a policy change where initially trips were required to be for medical purposes. And that change to open it up to have the Dial-A-Ride available to a range of purposes really seems to have turned ridership around. Taking a little bit of a closer look at both the fixed route services. So these show the average daily ridership on each of the routes on each day that they operate. So you can see that the green route, the Citadel Express, and the red route all are the most highly used routes on weekdays. Certain routes operate on both Saturdays and Sundays. Some routes only operate on Sundays. And there are several routes, such as the Purple Route or the 26th Street Shuttle, that really don't carry a whole lot of riders. And so those are some areas that we are looking at to think about restructuring the service to provide a more effective service. The chart on the right shows the productivity, so the number of boardings per revenue hour. And this indicates, for the amount of service that is provided, how many riders are using it. And so there are some similar trends. For example, the green route is the most productive. But you can also see that certain routes are not as well utilized, and some are carrying fewer than 10 passengers per hour. Of note is the Citadel Express, which is a high ridership route, but is not as productive. And that's something that's typical of express routes, because there's a long portion of the route that's not picking up passengers because it's operating on the freeway. So it's a slightly different type of service than a lot of the other routes in the Commerce system. So taking a closer look at Dial-A-Ride, we wanted to sort of compare what the trip patterns are like for people that are starting and ending their trip in Commerce, as well as people who are leaving Commerce as part of their trip. So we looked at data from October 2019 to sort of get a sense of what happens in a typical month. The primary destinations are senior apartments, senior center, and then the shops in the Commerce Center. And by contrast, if you look at the travel patterns and the frequency of use of trips leaving Commerce, you can see that there's almost double the number of people that are going outside of Commerce. So the wide range of destinations, almost 700 people in October utilized the service to take a trip outside of Commerce. And some of those locations include East LA College, medical appointments, and other locations. So this kind of shows this is the potentially that bigger market that was made available when the policy changed back in 2017. And you can see that people are using the service to get to a variety of places. So looking at some of the demographics, Commerce is a little bit unique in that there's a relatively small residential population and quite a few jobs. So the map shows basically a matrix of how the population and employment densities in the city intersect. And you can see that employment is really the sort of overarching generator of demand for transit. But we also looked at some of the characteristics of the residential population. So of the roughly 12,000 residents, almost 20% of them are living below the poverty line. There's about 13% of the population that are over 65, 7% have disabilities, and about 10% do not live in a household that does not have access to a vehicle. Now, by contrast, you've got 57,000 jobs in the city. So clearly a lot of those people that are filling those jobs are coming from outside of the city. And we like to take a look at the low wage jobs because often those correspond with people who are likely to ride transit. And there are about 10,000 low wage jobs within the city of Commerce. And then something that doesn't necessarily show up on a population or employment map, we know that there are regional destinations like the Citadel Outlets and the Commerce Casino that are also associated with not necessarily home and work trips, but recreational trips and shopping trips that are also, places of interest for people coming into Commerce. So this map shows for people that live in Commerce where they access employment. And this is data from the census, and it shows that there's some pretty clear clusters of people who both live and work in Commerce. There's about 900 people that are accessing their jobs from a home in Commerce. And then there's also concentrations of people accessing jobs in downtown LA and Vernon and Montebello, and then a variety of other dispersed locations. Looking at the reverse, so the home locations of people who access jobs in Commerce, first of all, you'll note quite a few more of those data points on the map. Also, not as much of a singular cluster, but just a general proliferation of those locations in the areas immediately surrounding Commerce. And so looking at places like Maywood and Bell Gardens and Montebello, we see that there may be an opportunity to serve the overall travel market of people who come from outside of Commerce, potentially to connect them to Commerce using transit. So as I mentioned, a big piece of our effort here is to make sure that we engage with the community in a meaningful way to learn about their needs related to transportation and transit. So we've completed our first phase of community involvement. There will be a second one later in the process. But some of the tactics that we used were to talk directly to stakeholders who may represent different community groups or constituencies in the city. So we talked to 10 different organizations and departments. We also held a virtual open house in June, which was an opportunity for us to present some of the information that I'm presenting here today and have a community dialogue about what people would like to see in terms of improvements to the transit system. And then finally, we had a survey that was both available online and through paper surveys that we distributed through various channels. There was also a prize and a raffle to incentivize people to take the survey. And we got about 200 responses combined and got some interesting findings from that process. So we will be doing another round of outreach when we get into some of these specific recommendations. But for now, we were able to learn a few things about what people might be looking for as an output of this study. So a couple of things that we learned is that people riding City of Commerce Transit are typically going grocery shopping or to other types of shopping, which corresponds with what we see in the terms of the Commerce Shopping Center being a major destination. There's also a fair amount of people accessing medical and dental appointments. When we asked people why they use transit or City of Commerce Transit, many of them indicated that they don't have access to a car or don't have the ability to drive. And then we asked people what they would like to see in terms of improvements. And so this was a list of potential improvements that respondents could rank, and we averaged the ranking that they provided. And so down at the, and so the top, the smaller numbers correspond to a more highly rated or ranked improvement. So what we see as the most important is to have more frequent service. Most of Commerce's routes operate less than every hour. Some of them operate somewhere between the sort of 30 and 60-minute window, but not nearly as frequent as many other bus services available in the county. There's also a desire to have more service on weekends, which I think corresponds to the fact that there's, especially on Sundays, there's a very reduced service compared to what is operated on weekends and Saturdays, weekdays and Saturdays, excuse me. And then there's also a desire for some enhancement in terms of the safety and comfort in bus stops. So in an environment like Los Angeles, many times the weather is nice, but you've also got hot days and rainy days. And so making sure that there is a place to sit and shelter, and also amenities such as information about when the next bus is coming and that sort of thing was highlighted by respondents as being important. We had a lot of just general comments that came through the survey as well. People are interested in Commerce Transit connecting them to places outside of the city. So right now, the fixed route service, unlike the dial-a-ride service, only stays in Commerce. And we definitely heard that people are interested in being able to take City of Commerce Transit to other parts of the county. Certainly, there are other services like LA Metro and Montebello bus lines that do provide those connections, but they may not provide them in a way that's easy for residents to access. There's also a difference in that City of Commerce Transit is free and those services are not. So this gave us an idea of what the types of things we might want to focus on as we go into the recommendations phase would be. So to sort of wrap up, and I'll have a few questions for you all in a moment, some of the key findings that we are sort of taking into this next phase is that there are a few things happening in commerce that really lend themselves to thinking about how transit service can be effective. And things include that there are new planned residential developments, such as the Modelo project, that will, create new concentrations of residences in the city. That there are already fairly dense neighborhoods surrounding the city and communities like East Los Angeles that may be areas that people could be connected to or from to access jobs. Destinations that are already being served, like the Citadel outlets and the casino, are areas of focus to provide those regional connections. And that in general, it's just a very large employment center. And so there's a lot of opportunity to bring people into the city through modes other than driving. On the flip side, some of the challenges that we'll be looking to address and that are, sort of on our minds when we think about recommendations is that the city's residential population is relatively small. That when you look at the number of people that are living in some of the areas surrounding commerce that are more residential focused, there's many more people outside of the city than inside. So capturing a market that is interested in using this transit system may require us to look outside of the city. There's been a trend of decreasing ridership on the fixed route service, so we're definitely looking at ways to address that. And then in terms of some of the sort of nuts and bolts of creating a bus route that's effective and efficient, with all the freeways and railroads in commerce, there's just sort of a geometry issue in that it's not always easy to get from point A to point B in a straight line. And so that there may be excess travel times that people experience on board, some of which may be the same, whether you're on the bus or whether you're driving, but some of them, especially in the congested areas, may be compounded for transit due to the need to get in and out of traffic to stop at different bus stops. So I do have a couple of questions for you just to sort of guide us in this next phase. But before I go there, I just wanted to ask if anybody has any questions about the slides of the information that I've presented.
Thank you for your presentation. Is there any questions or comments from City Council?
I just have a small question. I know this was done pre-COVID. Do you think that now this would affect your findings significantly?
So we've been working on the analysis over the past couple of months. So we're sort of doing it under the lens of, we know COVID's going on, but the data on ridership patterns is from prior to COVID. So certainly we're dealing with a different set of circumstances in that people are thinking about how they get around differently, whether it's, having access to a car is more preferable due to, perceptions about safety, but also we're probably going to see that a lot of people have fallen on, hard times financially, and that a free bus route may be now more appealing than it might have been in the past. So certainly I think that we're going to see differences in the way that people ride transit. But I think we're in a good position, and because we have data on also how those travel patterns have changed, so that that we can collect now and compare it to before. So I think that certainly continuing to engage with the community to see what is needed is going to help us create a package of recommendations that reflects where we are now. But it's also a really great opportunity that we don't have to completely rearrange a system midstream to implement new recommendations, but there have been some reductions in service, and we can think about how to really systematically layer service back in as things reopen and as ridership demand increases, and potentially use the COA results to guide that.
Thank you so much.
Mayor, I have a couple of comments.
Yes, please.
Hazel, when I was going through the report, thank you for the full report. I think the numbers were, I'm going to say, pretty on. Some of the things that really caught my attention was basically you had 300 households that have 0 vehicles in the household. I'm trying to figure out where they're at, because we have so many parking issues and residents that have 2, 3, 4 cars. This is the first time that I see a number, and I guess I'm impressed that it's so high, because I'm always under the impression that our residents have 2 to 3, 4, 5, 6 vehicles. So just out of curiosity, whenever we get another report, like pinpoint what area, because again, my numbers, once I read your report, where I thought some of the numbers were in the Bristol and Veterans Park area, it ended up being the community that I live in the Bandini Park. So on that one, I wanted to ask, if we can know where the 300 households are, because again, we have parking and vehicle issues throughout the city.
Sure.
Other than that, again, reading your report, as I keep on doing my research and all that, your numbers were right on. So again, thank you. And, hopefully in the future, we can encourage our residents to ride our buses, even if it's for convenience. Because one of the benefits of living in Commerce is free transportation. But when you ask the regular resident, one of the benefits is riding our buses for free. And you ask them how many times you've ridden a bus in the city, and usually it's either never or maybe once. Mm-hmm. And that includes myself. I think I've got in over 20, almost 30 years I lived in the city, I probably got on the bus 3 times. And I've only done it because, I'm at home, I'm bored, and I'm thinking I'm going to go to Target, but I'm going to catch a bus just to see how the program's working. At the end of the day, I'm happy with the drive, everything that I did. Hopefully in the future, we can encourage our residents to even just go for a ride. We got the bus that takes us to downtown, over to the Staples Center and all that. So maybe we can do a little bit, encouraging for our residents to travel within our bus lines. They can make it all the way to downtown LA for free. We take them and we bring them back. Hopefully we could encourage more ridership, because, also looking at the numbers, I felt that the numbers were kind of low, and maybe it's because the ridership has decreased. But again, anything we can do to increase our ridership, it'll really help out our transportation program. Thank you for your report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Mendoza. Any other? Go ahead.
If I could just respond to the question on the 0 vehicle households. So the source of that data is the Census American Community Survey. That data is collected at the census block group level, which unfortunately in Commerce doesn't really align it specifically with the neighborhood. So we can sort of get a sense of which quadrant of the city maybe that it's focused in. So the summary numbers that we gave were at the city-wide level. We didn't look specifically at the individual census blocks. But I would say that, I think the Bandini neighborhood is where more of the population in the city is. It's a more densely populated area, which may be why that's where the concentration of zero vehicle households is just because there's more people there, period. So, we unfortunately don't have the ability to drill down any more specifically than that. But I mean, I think that, anywhere that, while there may be, families that have multiple vehicles, I think that it is, in my experience in other communities, the people without vehicles are often hard. It is hard to imagine that that's the case. But, when we asked about the survey, or when we completed the survey, it sort of supported that idea that there are quite a few residents that don't have that option.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
So I will just continue through the last few slides. So what I have up here on the screen are some guiding principles. So like I said, where we're at in the process is that we've done our technical analysis, and now we're going to take those ideas and all of the open-ended feedback that we collected from the community and start to put it into actually drawing some lines on the map and re-envisioning the service to better match the needs that we have identified. So we have sort of three guiding categories of things that we're going to attempt to address. The first is improving access, which can mean a lot of different things. But to us, what we're focusing on is ensuring that people have a safe walking path from the neighborhood that they may live in to where the actual bus stop is. Right now, a lot of Commerce's routes go into the neighborhoods and stop at quite a few places within the neighborhoods, which makes it easy to access the bus, but may not be the most efficient use of resources for connecting people. We want to look at opportunities to increase route frequency so that you have more access to more service, that a bus is coming by your stop maybe every 30 minutes instead of every 75, 80, or 100 minutes. And then moving on to sort of the on-bus experience, so reducing travel times. We know that there are some barriers and routing issues that make it difficult for people to get across town in a timely manner. But one of the things that's really working against the system right now is that most of the routes are a loop in one direction, which means that if you need to go from one place to another, you have to ride the loop all the way around, potentially, even if it's not the shortest path back to where you started. And so we're looking at opportunities to simplify those loops and make them bi-directional linear routes, both to remove the number of turning movements and zigzags that may be in the route, but also to make sure that people can go either to the store and back in the same amount of time without having to go out of their way on a loop. And then the last key principle is increasing ridership. So I think as the Councilman Mendoza mentioned, we do see that the ridership data has decreased and is low today, and we want to make sure that we're addressing that by looking at opportunities to attract more people to the system and attract people more often. So that may include looking at destinations that are outside of the city. It may include connecting to regional transportation systems like the Gold Line or other bus routes, and also making sure that for people who are currently using the system or who may use the system in the future, that we continue to provide those connections that take people from their homes to those essential services like grocery stores and medical appointments in a way that's as convenient as possible. So these are the principles that we think, based on what we heard during our outreach and technical analysis, would best fit our next step in developing recommendations. But we want to hear from you to make sure that we're on the right track, and that if there are things that you're hearing from your constituents that transit needs to address, or things that you value about transit you would like us to focus on, let us know, because these are the sort of things that we're going to focus on in this next step, and we want to make sure that that aligns with your goals as well.
Is there any comments or suggestions?
I have a question, Mayor, if I may. Hazel, thank you for your report and your guiding principles here. I just wanted you to elaborate a little bit more on, you made a comment about how we have, within the neighborhoods, we have different areas, how we have the actual bus routes going through the different neighborhoods. But you mentioned that may not be necessarily the most best way to do it. What did you mean by that? I'm trying to understand exactly what you meant by that.
So sort of to balance the need to make sure people can safely access the bus with the second bucket, which is to reduce travel time. So if you live on a corner and the bus happens to stop there, that's great. But you may be causing people who are just trying to get across town more travel time because the bus has to deviate into a neighborhood and make several stops before continuing on. So one thing that we are going to consider is ways to sort of remove some of the neighborhood operation, not to eliminate it, but to say, can we provide somebody a safe walking path to a bus stop in a reasonable distance, but eliminate the sort of weaving in and out of the neighborhoods that might be slowing the buses down. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, and I just wanted you to elaborate a little bit. I kind of thought you meant something along those lines, but I wanted to hear clearly exactly what you were talking about. And I understand the rationale for that, and there may be some areas that I guess could reduce some travel time, but I mean, we'll have to look at that and determine, if that's, I think our community is pretty much dialed into. They're used to having access to these buses, those that use it, and they count on it, particularly when it's raining, bad weather, in terms of heat, cold, those are also considerations that we need to look at in terms of making sure that a lot of our riding population, can get to those buses.
Absolutely.
But thank you. Very good presentation. I particularly like all the input that you received from the actual people that actually use it, the riders themselves. And some of those comments are actually pretty interesting, I think. So I'm looking forward to your next phase of this project and seeing what recommendations you bring forth for us to take a look at.
Great. Well, thank you for reading the report.
Absolutely. Any other questions, comments, suggestions? And Claude, would you like to say something about this presentation?
Well, working with Nelson Nygaard, they're very detail-oriented and pretty much got to the nuts and bolts of evaluating our operation. I think they've given us some great guiding principles to go by. And as council, I mentioned as well, I'm enthusiastic about the recommendation to come. And also to tap on a little bit what Council Member Argumento was saying as well. Surprisingly, we were getting a lot of feedback from the people that utilize the services with various suggestions of our things, the areas we can improve, other destinations. Those are things that we're going to come together, come with a nice package to come back and make a recommendation for you guys to consider. And as Hugo mentioned, we have had some discussion about meeting the needs of the community about traveling in those particular areas, such as the residents. But this would be the foundation for our fixed route to move forward, and then we can use other layers to kind of address those other needs, whether it could be a micro transit or other options to address those needs. But we definitely want to take everything into consideration to make sure we meet all the unmet transportation needs in our recommendations going forward.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I mean, we do need to hear from the community, right? If they're giving you suggestions, because I know we've moved a couple of routes, and then we get the phone calls that residents were used to getting on the bus in that area, and they want it back, right? I know you've eliminated some of them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but now was a good time. Pre-COVID, we got a chance to analyze it, post-COVID. So I think collectively, as we move forward and then move to the second phase of the public outreach portion, we'll get more data and encourage more residents to give us feedback. So when we come back to council for a recommendation, it's all inclusive, and hopefully we can address everybody's needs and concerns.
Got it. Okay, so what's next is that you guys are going to develop some more recommendations and then give us a final report?
Yes, Hazel, you want to go ahead and close it out as far as the next step?
Sure. So I've got a little chart of our schedule here. So we've completed our first public engagement round. We're just wrapping up our existing conditions. And basically, over the next couple of months, we're going to develop a couple of scenarios. And when we go back out to the public in the fall, we'll be asking them not just to comment on one set of recommendations, but to tell us what they like and don't like about a couple of different options. And that way we kind of, we don't just have people say, no, don't change it. I only want what we have today, but we actually get a little bit of better input about what works and what doesn't. And so that will be our second phase of outreach. We will take the feedback that we hear, create a set of recommendations that reflects the feedback that we heard, and develop the final report to come back to council with to review and approve.
Okay, got it. But this time then we're gonna move to receive and file. Is that what Edgar, what we're gonna do? Is receive and file, or we're going to vote on moving this forward?
Receive and file, Mayor.
Receive and file. Okay. Do I need a motion for receive and file?
Not necessarily for this item.
Okay. Is there any other?
Mayor, if I may, I think staff was asking for a motion from council to authorize them to move forward to develop these guidelines.
Okay. Is there a
And correct me if I'm wrong, Claude.
No, that's correct.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Move. Mendoza.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Can I please have a roll call?
Councilmember Argumedo,
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Sawyer,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ribor,
Yes.
and Mayor Altamirano.
Yes. Motion's approved. Looking forward to another presentation on how we're going to enhance our transit. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ava, Peter.
Okay, so then at this time we move to item number 8.
Good evening again, Mayor, members of the City Council. Item number 8 is related to a letter of agreement with AFSCME. You've heard testimony this evening and public comment related to this item. In short, because I know that the City Council's already been briefed multiple times, including it before this evening's closed session and during closed session, it extends the agreement with the association until 2023, and it implements across the board reductions that are uniform for both full-timers and part-timers. The full-timers will have a net 7% PERS pickup from where they are today, and the 4% raise to part-timers that was previously awarded will be eliminated. We greatly appreciate, as President Laura Logan said, their sacrifice and cooperation through this whole process. It has not been easy, as you already know. With that, I would like to provide you an opportunity to ask any questions or provide feedback to the staff and AFSCME members.
Okay, is there any council member that has any questions or would like to say anything, any comments on what's been taking place also? But I really want to thank all the council members and also the staff and the union for really working hard at this. I was able to attend, I believe, like 2 meetings, and I know that you guys met multiple times after that. So I just want to really thank the union for being a great partners between the city and the union. But again, also I want to really thank our staff and the city council for all working together to ensure that the city is safe and has a bright future. Does anybody have any comments?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please.
I'll just echo your sentiment in thanking our union for working collaboratively with our staff and with the council. This weekend I was able to have many conversations with different colleagues of the Southeast LA region, and a lot of them don't have the relationships that our staff has with the union. A lot of their unions are not, working with them and during these financial situations. And so I also wanted just to thank our union and just to let our employees know that these have been really hard decisions for all of us, and it is not lost on me the anguish, the anxiety that a lot of them have been holding throughout this whole pandemic, with the uncertainties of positions and just our situation in the city as a whole. And so I just want to thank our employees for their patience, for their belief in us, and and just to reiterate that we will get through this together, and better days will come. And again, we're here to do the best for this community and the best for our employee family. So just thank you to everyone all around, to our staff, to the union, and to our employees for just their patience. So that's all. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yeah, Mayor, I would like to echo the same sentiments you each have already done, and that is thank our union representatives, all of our employees for their cooperation in working with us as a team, because it really has taken a team of our staff and them together to put something together that we can all move forward with during this difficult time that not only our city, but many other cities throughout the state of California and throughout the United States are going to have to go through right now. And I just want to say thank you. We really appreciate your cooperation, and we look forward to, as already stated, better days when we begin to recover from the COVID-19. And hopefully they'll continue to make progress with a vaccine in the near future. And we will all recover soon and get on good footing. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mayor, I'd like to say a couple of things. I also want to thank the employees here in the city. When this pandemic hit us, a lot of tough decisions were put on our plate. In the beginning, the conversation was drastic. Layoffs, furloughs, downgrades, pay cuts. When you're in a situation where a pandemic hits you out of nowhere, we have to react. I'm going to say thank you to the employees, because from day one, they've worked with us. I think that they given in a little, we given in a little. What I'm happy to say is that they've never given up on trying to help us get through the situation. I know, you're probably not happy right now because you're taking a pay cut, but guess what? You're helping us make sure that we can balance the books. We've got into the reserves. We've done what we can. Now you're helping us save your jobs. From the beginning, the full city council has made it a priority to have the least impact on our employees, whether you're full-time and part-time. Also, the part-time employees have taken a big hit. I know they're excited. Little by little, they're coming back as we're opening up programs. And again, we wouldn't be where we're at right now if it wasn't for the employees. You guys have given a lot, and I know we're seeing what you guys are doing. Again, you might be thinking, I'm taking a pay cut to save somebody else's job. That in the future might be your job you're saving. So again, this message is out to all the employees. Thank you for working with us. We will do what we can to have the least impact on you. Again, staff, thank you for your negotiating. You guys have kept it open. You guys have kept us updated on everything. And I think we're coming up to a very satisfactory conclusion for everybody, for the employees, for our city council, for our city. So again, thank you for everything that you guys have done, employees and staff. Happy to know that we're working together, and after tonight, we're going to have a little breath of relief that we all been waiting for. Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, please.
Yeah, this definitely hasn't been an easy decision for us to make, and I can share with full honesty that I've advocated as best as I can to find ways to ensure that the decisions that we have to make, as drastic as they are, were equitable. It's never easy to look out your front door and see your neighbor who's an employee, knowing that they're furloughed or knowing that there's a potential layoff coming. And I know that this evening we've heard from some of our employees who feel that, we should be zeroing in on some that are considered essential and not so much on those that are not considered essential. But we definitely did try to take an equitable approach to ensure that we were able to lay this thing down as best we could and find balance. I think that, you know, with anything, right, we could have done better. We probably could have approached this from a different perspective, beginning from the top and then going down versus starting from the bottom and going up. I understand that this evening we are pushing some of our residents and our employees closer to the poverty line because of the reductions, and that doesn't sit well with me. Nonetheless, we've tried to find the best possible solution. We've done so in collaboration with the union, and it's not a difficult decision. You know, and I hope and I pray that we do find a vaccine for the virus, because we just can't get our economic engines started consistently to make sure that we can begin to generate revenue for our community, to ensure that we can safeguard the City of Commerce today and tomorrow, and ensure that there is a future. So this has been a difficult process of decision making. It hasn't been easy, but I do hope that we, with the same amount of effort, that we do lay this organization down equitably, that we don't just focus on the rank and file, that we don't just look to the rank and file to carry this heavy burden, but that across the organization that we find the same collaboration, and that we find coordination and effort across the line, so that it's just not buried. The brunt of this is just not carried by our rank and file employees. That's a difficult decisions that we've been making this evening. And, you know, it hasn't been easy. It's not going to continue to be easy, but I do pray that we continue to have collaboration, but we expend the same amount of effort as we begin to address other positions and classifications within our organization. Folks who, when they do experience these reductions, that they realize that they're not that much closer to the poverty line, like some of the folks that are going to be in their care and in their keep as their rank and file employees. So we definitely have more decisions to make, and it's my commitment that we continue to be equitable, and that we find solutions that will save the organization, but save the organization in a manner that it doesn't fall solely on the shoulders of our rank and files, of those that have been out there day in and day out. You know, again, our maintenance folks, I want to thank you guys for continuing to show up, continuing to provide that quality of service that you provide. For our Parks and Recs folks, for those that have transitioned, especially our senior center personnel, you know, they've been on the ground working tirelessly. You know, it was brought to our attention that our senior center staff make phone calls weekly to our seniors. There's a group of about 400 seniors that they reach out to on a daily basis to make sure that they're okay, to make sure that they're checking in on them. So again, I just want to thank our staff for continuing to be the true models of what Commerce represents. And again, it's our commitment, and it's our hope, and it's our prayer that we move through this pandemic in a manner that enables us to be able to recover economically, to get our engines restarted, so that we can begin to recover economically, is not just as a community, but, you know, especially for our organization. So those are my comments. Thank you so much again to our staff and to the union, and again to my colleagues. These are not easy decisions. I don't sleep well knowing that we have to make these decisions, knowing that there are some impacts to our employees who are also our residents and our neighbors. So again, it's my prayer that we do find a vaccine soon, so that recovery can commence and we can move away from the moments that we find ourselves in this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for your comments. Okay, at this time, is there a motion for the approval and adoption of the resolution approving the attached letter of agreement between the City of Commerce and the City of Commerce employees? Is there a motion?
I would move to approve.
There's a first, second. Can I please have a roll call?
Councilmember Argumedo,
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Sawyer,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Altamirano.
Yes. Motion passes. At this time, we're gonna go to ordinances. So we're gonna go to a public hearing. We're gonna open that up. Let me get ready for that. Okay, so at this time, we're gonna have our city staff present on item number 10.
Mayor, it's actually item number 9. It's not a public hearing. It's adoption and discussion of an RV permit parking.
All right, yeah, I missed number 9. I apologize. Okay, I got number 9. Thank you for that, Edgar.
Thank you, Mayor. Director Hernandez.
Who's in report? Okay.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. So I'll be presenting item 9, which is the RV parking permit program and the policy that is before you. All right, so prior to providing particulars of the policy, I do want to provide some background. So on June 16th, the City Council adopted Ordinance 754, which established a citywide ban on RV parking on the city streets without an approved city-issued permit. To ensure that RV owners are aware of Ordinance 754, staff is conducting public awareness and outreach. On how we're doing that, first, we published an article in the Commerce Connection, which should have hit the homes over the weekend or early this week. We've posted general notice signs, which you see one to the right throughout the city. There's over 35 signs that we have posted at all the major entrances and along the major corridors. We've also developed a flyer, which we will begin to distribute after today's meeting. A sample of that notice is here on the right-hand side. And lastly, via our social media outlets and the city website, we will also be providing some information. So the next 3 slides will provide specific details of the draft policy. The first item is the policy objective, which is intended to accommodate the needs of the community for the issuance of RV temporary parking permits and RV disability parking permits for our residents and their sponsored guests. Next is the purpose of this policy, and the purpose is to set forth the process and the criteria by which those permits are issued and identify the conditions which those permit applications may be approved. So
Excuse me, Director Hernandez.
Yes, sir.
Do you are you putting up your slides on the screen? Because we're not able to see anything unless we're following you on our agenda. Because you keep on talking about slides. Is there a slide we're supposed to be looking at?
So let me try this again. I thought I had it up, so if I apologize for if it didn't appear.
No problem. There we go.
I apologize for that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Thank you.
All right. With that being said, Councilmember Mendoza, did you have any questions on the previous 2? These are the slides that I went over. So it was the general notice, the flyer, and then going over the objective and the purpose. Now I'm on the principles.
No, please continue.
All right. Thank you for bringing it to my attention, though. So the next element of the policy are the principles, which are the requirements of the policy. And to simplify this section, I'll first go over what both of the RV temporary permit parking and the RV disability parking permit have in common. So first, the applicant must own or lawfully possess an RV. It is operable and registered with the DMV. That the applicant is a permanent resident of the city. The proposed location is necessary to provide access to the specific fixed residence, which is noted on their application. The proposed location does not create a dangerous condition. That the applicant, upon receiving the permit, is subject to the California Vehicle Code and the Commerce Municipal Code. That the fees associated with the issuance of the permit is established by resolution, which I will discuss that further in a later slide. That the permit itself does not guarantee parking. The actual parking permit, in terms of what they're required in terms of displaying the permit and the permit contents. And lastly, the permit will be not valid where signs are not posted prohibiting parking. So this is common for both the general parking permit and the disability parking permit. So now in terms of the differences, so this will go over to specifically what those differences are. So first, non-disability parking permit applicants, where applicable, will park their recreation vehicle within 25 feet, which in the policy we say adjacent, and we define that within 25 feet of the residence. An applicant must possess a disabled placard or license plate, so that just validates that the applicant is has a disability that qualifies for a placard or a license plate. That a disabled permit request requires an inspection to determine the RV is specially equipped. The intent of this requirement is to ensure there is a need based on a disability equipment. And lastly, there are time limits for residents and sponsored guests. So in the policy, we clearly lay out that a permit may be issued for loading and unloading or other short-term use for a period not to exceed 72 hours. And that permit of 72 hours can be requested up to 40 different times within the year. And they can be on a consecutive basis. However, after the 72-hour period, a 24-hour period needs to lapse before they can request another permit. For the sake of a visitor parking, it's very similar to the resident. However, that duration is only 48 hours, and they would only be allowed to do this 4 times within the year. So those are specific time limitations. For the disability permit, there is no time limitations. However, it is on an annual basis. So as long as the applicant has a disability and can prove that they have that disability and are granted a placard or a license plate, then they can apply on an annual basis. However, they're still governed by the California Vehicle Code and the city's municipal code. So if there's parking restrictions, then they will not be allowed to park on for example, a no street sweeping day where the sweeper passes by and no one's allowed to park. So there are limitations to, even though they do have that parking permit, they won't be allowed to park there. So the actual procedure. So in order for us to identify the needs, we developed 2 applications, and I only provided a sample of one of the parking permit request forms, which is similar to the other one. However, I just put it up for the sake of the council so that you guys could review it. But as part of the screening and submittal process, staff developed 2 applications to obtain important information from the applicant. In terms of the application review, staff will determine if there's adequate justification. If so, then we'll conduct site investigations and evaluation of existing parking conditions. Based on the aforementioned, staff will either approve or deny the request. So if a request is denied, the applicant does have the opportunity to appeal to the city council. And if appealed, staff will prepare a staff report for city council's consideration after that denial. So we will provide the particulars of the application and bring it back for the city council to review. As mentioned regarding the disability RV permit process, the annual review. So for an RV disabled parking permit to remain active, the applicant will be required to fill out and submit an annual application, and the duration is from January to December. So if an applicant comes in throughout the year, then it would only be prorated in terms of, for example, if someone comes in June, the actual application will only be valid for the 6-month period. And what the intent there is to help staff process all these at the beginning of the year to ensure that when renewals are required, we notify the applicant so that that process of staff processing becomes a little more efficient, so that it's all concentrated at one time, as opposed to throughout the year having multiple times where staff will need to send out a notice to the applicant that their application is about to expire. The procedure review. So this policy will be reviewed periodically to determine the applicability and the approach to our customer service. So any significant changes to this procedure will be formally presented to the Traffic Commission and then brought back before the City Council for adoption at a later date. Lastly, conditions. So there are conditions if an applicant chooses to apply for this that they must comply with. So the applicant must observe and obey all parking regulations. An RV temporary parking permit and an RV disabled parking permit shall not be misused. If there is misuse, it may result in removal of that permit. The person issued an RV disabled parking permit is no longer disabled or has an expired DMV issued disabled person placard, it can be revoked. The RV shall not have an expired license plate, and monitoring continuous complaints from neighbors, residents regarding the parking of the recreational vehicle will also be taken into consideration. So if there is an issue where the applicant is parking outside of the area deemed acceptable, then we will, the policy does give staff some discretion in terms of revoking that permit. And lastly, like I mentioned, the permit fees. So based on the feedback that we get from City Council today, if the policy is set as proposed, then we can easily put together our cost estimate of what it would be required for an applicant to pay for this service. At the direction of the city manager, we also are putting in a fee waiver condition. So the council, if it so chooses, when we bring back the item on the 18th, if you guys would like to adopt that fee waiver for seniors or someone of a certain income level, you guys are within your discretion to do so. So based on the feedback that we receive and any changes that we need to make to the policy, then we will bring back what that process looks like for the actual processing, and then we will formally adopt the resolution for the fee itself. So lastly, the recommendation that we have before you is for approval of the RV parking permit policy so that staff can proceed with implementation of this policy and the subsequent enforcement. At this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, Daniel, did I hear you in the beginning of the presentation that you speak into the signs of no parking that they were put up already?
So yes, so staff has been putting them up, and the update that I got this morning is that they will be done with installation by Thursday, the latest. But we may actually be able to get it done tomorrow. But I'm just, just more conservatively saying that we'll have it done by Thursday.
Now, are these signs only going into residential areas, or are they also going into commercial, industrial areas?
They're spread out through the entire city. So we've installed 35. So most of these signs are not in a residential area. They may be leading to a residential area, but they're all on main entrances to the cities or main corridors to the city. So part of our public outreach is residents will all get the Commerce Connect. We will be posting on social media. We'll be posting on our website, and we will actually be going throughout the city, and where we see an RV, we are going to leave a flyer. So, we're going overboard on the outreach to ensure that owners of RVs understand what the policy entails, and that parking without a permit is against the municipal code and subject to citation.
Okay, so right now there's still RVs that are parked in these areas, and some in the industrial areas. We haven't done anything to them, and that's what I'm hearing.
That is correct. So as of July 16th, we could have began enforcement. However, in terms of the policy, we didn't have it in place for an applicant to actually. So we could have theoretically enforced against a resident who owns an RV. But now this, based on all the feedback and the time to develop the policy based on the ordinance and the 30 days of it being enacted, the policy was established and we brought it back before you in today's council meeting. So we're saying that we intend to start the enforcement on September 1st to give residents the opportunity, because this only applies to residents and their sponsored guests. So people who are coming outside the city who do not live in the city will not be entitled to apply for a permit. Therefore, we would be able to enforce on that alone.
Right. So there's RVs that are parked throughout the residential area and also in industrial areas that don't belong to residents. So my question is, are we going to wait till September 1st to ask them to leave the city?
Mayor, let me jump in if it's okay. So there's some streets that have a prohibition on parking RVs. We are going to hold enforcement though on the no RV parking on city streets until we do notification. If we don't notify, that's one of the areas where we may be vulnerable. As you know, it takes 30 days for the ordinance to take effect. It took effect on July 16th. We wanted to make sure that we didn't order the signs until the ordinance actually took effect in the event that it was challenged. Once it took effect, we ordered the signs. We feel that it's in the city's best interest to be able to be on the right side of enforcement and have the ordinance be defensible, to do a public education campaign as we spoke about, so that nobody could later claim to be caught off guard in the event that they get a citation. And by placing this in the entrances to the city, we're also protecting ourselves when we enforce against potential outsiders that come in and randomly may park an RV. So that's the reason for the delay in the enforcement. That does not preclude us though from the enforcement that we have going on, where we already had previously no overnight parking on certain city streets.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the council?
You're muted.
Leonard, you're muted.
Thank you. Mayor, I believe a couple of meetings ago when we started talking about the RV ordinance, I remember giving the recommendation of using digital signs on the main streets. And I remember the response was, oh, this is not for the RVs that are parked in the main streets. My intention was really for people to start, if you're driving down Garfield, the odds is, put one of those digital signs going into the Veterans Park community. If you're coming down Atlantic or Eastern, so they don't park in the Roseville Park area, Bandini Park area, Bristol Park area. And again, once we see a digital sign in one of the main streets, the neighbors and the same RV people start talking to each other. Oh, did you see the sign down Garfield? Because I know for a while Garfield Avenue was a concern. So it was more to start the conversation. And I know we don't want to go ahead and start enforcing until we had the opportunity to put out a campaign, outreach campaign. And I was thinking, again, I would like to make that recommendation again, pending how many digital signs we have, one on Garfield, one on Atlantic, one on Eastern, and one on Washington. And just with 4 digital signs saying RV parking permits are only for residents, you need to be a resident, something in the line, just so the word gets out there. I know that we don't want to, again, enforce until we give in the outreach. But again, I believe this is going to be the third time I make that recommendation. Twice. It hasn't sounded like it's been a good idea. I keep on seeing that, I don't think we've done the outreach yet. So I'm going to give that recommendation for a third time. Hopefully, I can get somebody to back me on this one.
Yeah, let's get clear on that. I think that this all started because of the RV vehicles that were overtaking our streets, and they were not residents. Now, I would like to hear a little bit more about Councilmember Mendoza's recommendation with the digital signs. Like, what do you mean exactly? And where would these digital signs go? What would they look like?
Just to give you an idea, there we go. Just to give you an idea, just the same way when they had the Black Friday and we had that digital sign down Atlantic saying you can't turn into the homes in the Rosini area. We have a digital sign up on Eastern saying you can't go into the village, and the same thing on Washington Boulevard. It's just if we cover, I would say, our main 4 big avenues, I think we would be able to possibly protect the 4 communities. I don't know how many digital signs we have, and it'll be just to get the conversation out there. I know, again, when I used to work for the school district, I used to drive Gage Avenue a lot, and I would always see the digital signs in Huntington Park. It was always down Gage about fireworks are illegal, you can't park in the alleys and all that. I didn't live in Huntington Park, but believe me, I knew I couldn't pop fireworks in Huntington Park, and I know I couldn't park in an alley. So again, I would always come home and say, okay, maybe we should be doing that in commerce. And again, a lot of the times we don't have to reinvent the wheel. The wheel's out there already. Let's just put the wheel. So the conversation with me is more. So I would overdo it on the outreach than underdo it. I don't want nobody to challenge us on the fact that, well, I didn't know about it. What do you mean? We passed out flyers. It's in our community paper. We went out and put out digital signs. Again, somebody fights us on getting a ticket. We have about 4 or 5 ways of saying we try to reach out to you. And obviously, if they couldn't get the message, you're going to get a ticket. But again, it's just an idea. Hopefully, after the third time, we're successful on something just to get the conversation out there. Again, you guys want to make sure they get the message. I want to make sure that our citations stick. So again, I'll make that recommendation again. Thank you,
Yes.
Mayor.
Absolutely, I agree. I agree with that we should put these digital signs in our huge inlets and outlets, Washington, Garfield, maybe even Telegraph. I don't know, but I like the idea because it's really, people are going to read it and they're going to know. So I'm in agreement with that. Any other questions, comments on that? And are you in agreement with putting digital signs anywhere? And if Daniel or our city manager Edgar would like to speak into that.
No, we'll move as recommended. We do have CMS, the changeable message signs, the CMS. We do have 3 of them. I'll make sure they're in working order, and if they're not, then we could also look at potentially just renting a couple to make sure that they're on Atlantic, Washington, Eastern, and Garfield.
Thank you.
All right, good idea, Councilmember Mendoza.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments? Oh, it doesn't look like there's any questions. So then, there's a recommendation here for a motion to approve, to consider the approval of a recreation vehicle RV parking permit program policy. Is there a motion to pass this?
I would move to approve.
There's a motion.
Second.
There's a second. Can I please have a roll call?
Councilmember Guimeda,
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Soria,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Altamirano.
Yes. Motion passes. Okay, at this time, now we go to our public hearing. And on our public hearing, we'll go to item number 10. And who from staff will present on this?
Director.
Okay.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, Jose Jimenez, here to present a couple ordinances for you this evening. As I prepare my presentation here, I'm about to share a screen, so I believe we are. Okay. And hopefully my presentation is coming through. Feel free to correct me if it's not. This is item number 12 or 10 on the agenda this evening. We are going to talk a little bit about an ordinance for accessory dwelling units. I will be doing a presentation. We do have our legal representative from AGC that helped us with this, Mark Murray. He's on the Zoom call. He will be helping me if we need to discuss some of the more heavier topics of the items that we're about to discuss as it relates to ADU. So with that said, I just want to kick it off as far as why are we here to talk about accessory dwelling units? And really it's in reaction to a package of assembly bills, state bills over the last few years that have required or placed a lot of communities in situations where we now then have to update our ordinances. And all this went into effect earlier this year with the start of the year. And one of those signature recommendations that came out of all this is basically a requirement that said, hey, cities, counties, so forth, you adopt an ordinance, or if not, We're just going to require you to implement the state standards. So that's kind of where a lot of communities are at coming out of this January 1st implementation. So as I started to talk about under government section 658.52, it's basically saying that ordinances that are not in compliance as of January 1st of this year are considered null and void. Here, for example, in the City of Commerce, we have a second unit ordinance, which in effect under this government section code is now null and void. We are required at this point to abide by the state standards absent of us prior to this evening of adopting the ordinance. So one of those signature requirements is that we have to basically receive the blessing of the state department known as the Housing and Community Development or HCD. And so why all this? Well, you know, a lot of our legislators for years have been saying that there is a housing crisis in the state of California, up and down the state. And one of those quote unquote quick fixes, they probably thought, is to streamline and encourage the deployment of accessory dwelling units. So in essence, the government code is intended to provide for relaxed standards to these sections of the code. So that's why we're here today. And among other things, all communities that are required to go through the process of updating their ADU ordinances and JADUs, they are required to submit this to the department, to HCD, for their review. And I'm saying here the scrutiny of their review authority, meaning then that we tend to believe that we have a very strong ordinance, but it is subject to interpretation of the state as far as is it meeting the goals and objectives as prescribed by our state legislators. So that is something that they're going to review on the back end once we have this ordinance approved. And again, we've already talked about it, but one of the other signature requirements of the ADU ordinance requirements is that the local governments are being asked to limit the ability to regulate these uses. Again, the key is we want to ensure that we're providing a mechanism to allow for the development and really the deployment of this affordable housing option with minimal government oversight. And shortly I will be talking to you about that. But before we go there, I think I started to talk a little bit about ADUs. And something that's come out of this ordinance is also a JADU. An ADU, just to kind of give us a little bit of an understanding, is an attached or detached residential dwelling unit that provides a complete independent living facility for one or more person and has to be located on the same parcel with a primary residence. It requires that we provide for a living, sleeping, eating, cooking, bathing, and sanitation facilities. So in addition to all that, we have also what's called a JADU, or a junior accessory dwelling unit, which is a smaller version of an ADU, which requires that it be no more than 500 square feet. Typically, this is required to be attached to a primary residence and must include basics like a kitchen, facility, so forth. But there are opportunities for co-sharing of general facilities like a bathroom and the likes. JADUs, ADUs, IOUs, right? I found this diagram here on the internet to maybe best describe the difference between an ADU and a JADU. So your traditional ADU, as you can see, is somewhat more of a detached structure, similar to the structure at the rear in orange, whereas the JADU, the junior accessory dwelling unit, is typically attached to the house. And in this scenario, your JADU is basically your attached garage being converted into this junior accessory dwelling unit. I hope this diagram helps out. We'll be more than happy to come back towards the end of the presentation if we want to talk a little bit further about this. But again, we've talked about limiting the requirements that a city can impose on the deployment of ADUs and JADUs. We are required to go before the state for their review and consideration. So after this process, we have to present our ordinance buttoned up, and hopefully they will bless it, or they will come back with corrections, recommendations, so forth, at which point we have to decide Is the state right? Is the City of Commerce right? And so there's that whole process. So again, what's critical to all this is that the mandates from the state require that we implement this. Otherwise, our existing ordinances are considered null and void. When we talk about some of the major changes, this is what this slide is telling us a little bit about. So just to briefly go over this, as I highlighted in the start of my presentation, a homeowner is entitled to have an ADU on their property as well as a junior accessory dwelling unit, as long as there is a single family on the property. The Mayor Pro Tem earlier talked a little bit about parking and potential for parking. But one of the signature requirements, which is going to really put a crimp on a lot of communities, is a requirement for parking. We can no longer impose restrictions on parking when you comply with certain performance standards, primarily if you're located within a quality transit area, that is where you have access to transit like a bus stop and the likes. You are allowed to do an ADU and not have to provide the parking. That's a very, I think, considerable recommendation that everyone up and down the state is being required to absorb. And considering some of the concerns, depending where we're at in the city, it's something that we still have to be very cognizant and aware of, because this is what the state is telling us. In addition to that, there are reduced setbacks for ADUs in the back of your house. So the new code requires us to require at least a 4-foot setback to the side and rear for any new ADU. And another signature requirement as well is that the ADU or the owner no longer is required to, live on the property where an ADU is being proposed. Previously, this was a recommendation with prior ordinances, as well as communities who said, well, we're not going to allow an ADU if the property owner is not planning to live there. That's no longer the case. Someone can own the property and rent it out, both the residential as well as the ADU. Another thing is, here in the city, we have strict development standards that typically require us to verify floor area, lot coverage, open space, and the likes. Under the ADU ordinance, we cannot impose those requirements to ADUs. And then last, ADUs have to be at least 850 square feet with up to 1-bedroom units, and can go up to 1,000 square feet, between 850 to 1,000 for an ADU. And I already mentioned that junior accessory dwelling units are 500 square feet and under. So this evening, what we're asking is for the city council to, one, conduct a public hearing, consider public testimony, and when done, either acknowledge that the project is exempt from CEQA and conduct the first reading, or provide alternative recommendations. As of 7:51 this evening, staff has not personally received any recommendations or comments regarding this evening's ordinance. But with this, I will bring my presentation to a conclusion. And again, I'm just going to page back to the one slide where we're talking about some of the major changes, just to see if there are any additional questions or comments that council may have prior to rendering it this evening. And again, Mark Murray from our attorney's office is here as well to provide a little bit more context if needed.
Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my question relates to, obviously with the relaxation of the parking now, making it easier for the conversion. You don't no longer have to provide for the parking. In terms of, like, let's say in the cases where we have garages that have been converted, we recently passed a recommendation where now you can use the driveway. So in essence, that provides an additional parking spot for those particular residents, right? But in a conversion, even though that has been relaxed, at least there's some comfort in knowing that with what we passed, that doesn't affect that, correct? That's still in effect.
Correct. So the triggers for this section of the code would apply, again, if someone wants to do either an ADU or a JADU, at which point we will look at the recommended code as being recommended this evening, just to make sure that they comply or that they're located within one of these unique factors. And yeah, it does encourage us to also continue to allow for open parking, like on a driveway on private property.
Mhm.
So there is an opportunity to continue to provide that. But again, one of those signature moves, and I think a challenge for this ordinance is how we plan to address parking moving forward. But unfortunately, the state has ruled on this already.
All right. And just for clarification also, what also will determine whether it's an ADU or what was the other, a JADU, is it?
ADU, yeah.
Yeah. So let's say the garage, like in this case, let's say that was a garage over to the left and it's detached. So that would be an ADU, is that correct?
The orange, yes, would say it's an ADU.
Okay, so but let's say that the garage is attached to the dwelling. Now that becomes a JADU, correct?
So just to make sure, Councilmember Argumedo, in this scenario, right, we have this detached structure. It's an ADU, but we're referring to this green right here, where it's an existing home and there's an attached garage to it.
Okay.
This is now the junior accessory dwelling unit. One, the size of the JADU can't go over 500 square feet, and two, it has to be attached to the primary residence in order for it to qualify as a JADU.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Those are my questions. And there's nothing really we can do related to, I mean, bottom line is, yeah, it's going to create additional, possibly, because you're looking at additional individuals now living at these units, but yet there's no, it's going to create a burden, an additional burden in terms of more than likely parking. So the only thing that we can say is that in situations where now we're utilizing the driveway once again of, let's say, an existing garage, we've created additional opportunities for people to actually use them for additional parking.
I mean, by de facto, right, it's going to place a lot more burden on the driveways for the vehicles. And so we probably, through a separate action, have to look at maybe, how would you say, expanding or considering some sort of requirements to provide for more of a beefier sort of driveway to try to get those cars or keep those cars off the street.
Yeah, it may be something that we may need to look at, you know, and see if there's other opportunities for us to take advantage of, you know. I know that in the village, I know we've had requests for people that have additional space on their yards where they wanted to expand it and put pavement so they can actually, you know, park their cars there. I mean, we may need to look at situations like that where that may be viable, and to the extent that it's allowable by our code, or if we need to make changes to it to allow for those conditions, you know?
Yeah, it's something I've been monitoring myself, Councilmember Argumedo, as part of separate code amendments here that we are considering in the short future. But one of them, in reaction to this ordinance, it would be beneficial to try to maybe, and again, I'm overusing the word relax considering the topic tonight, but to maybe ease the requirements so that we can allow for a little bit of a wider driveway so that we can get those cars onto private property rather than having an over concentration on our public street.
Right. I mean, we need to look for those opportunities where they may present themselves and do that, you know, so that, because I mean, I know it's going to add, you know, to the already problem that we have. And I get it, you know, you're relaxing it so that we can provide more housing opportunities. And I'm okay with it. I'm just looking for an opportunity also to take advantage of ways to be able to park some of these additional vehicles out there.
Yes, thank you. And we'll make a note of that.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I may ask a question.
Yes, please.
Jose, just to make sure that I'm understanding the way I read the item, a single family resident here in the city can apply and build both ADU and a JADU, correct?
That is correct. In the scenario that you're saying, this footprint that you see here, picture it as any property in the village, right? Yeah, it's saying that you can do one, the orange building, which is the detached ADU, and then this attached green junior ADU on the property.
Because I can only imagine Councilmember Argumedo's alluding to the parking issues that we're having throughout the city. And, I want to make sure that we understand that, residents do have the right to build both of them, the ADU and the JADU, because if the ADU is going to create an issue with the parking, I think both of them are going to create double the issue. So, I guess we're going to have to just take it as it comes, and then we're going to have to readjust to the situations, because again, I love the idea that the governor is trying to solve this homelessness issue. But as my colleagues can attest, we have a lot of concerns about the parking throughout the city. So again, I like the idea and I support it. It's just, again, it's gonna bring us a little concern when it comes to the parking issues. But that's something we're gonna have to deal with anyway. So again, I just want to make sure that I read it right and know that the residents have a right to build both of them before somebody calls me and says, oh, they're building 2 units, one attached and one in the back. Okay, that's basically legal. Okay, thank you, Jose, for the clarification.
Thank you,
Mayor,
Councilmember Mendoza.
Thank you, Mayor.
If I may address one clarification, Jose and Mayor.
Yes, please.
Even though we have this graph on the screen, right, and that is just to provide you with an example, but just for clarifications, even though here we have the ADU that is detached, the ordinance does allow for either attached, detached, or located within an existing primary residence. So don't think that because it's the example here provides for a detached, that that's only the limitation, and that provides a distinction between the JADU and the ADU. So I just want to make that clear that this is just an example, but the ordinance does allow for attached, detached, or located within an existing primary residence.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, please.
Jose, you talked about, making the driveways wider. I don't know if I missed it, or currently, as our code stands, somebody that wants to make a driveway, the driveway has to lead to a garage, correct?
That is correct.
With
yes.
this, new type of ordinance, would we be able to look at that portion of the code and look at code amendments to where not only are we going to talk about, widening the driveways, but also allowing residents who don't have a garage, allowing them to make their driveways. I know that, there's a few residents, or actually one particular resident on Bartmus who for years, has been asking to be able to do a driveway on their property because they're the only house on Bartmus in that particular block that doesn't have a driveway, but they don't have the way it's aligned on their property, it wouldn't lead to their garage. So, because of the code, they were never allowed to. But I think if we're going to look at, addressing the parking issues in our city, then this would be the perfect time to look at that as well, so that we are able to allow residents to make driveways, even though they don't necessarily lead to a garage. So I don't know if this is something we could address here or bring it in the future, but especially with these new code amendments, and again, right, we understand that the state is allowing this, so we're basically kind of like our hands are kind of tied, I guess. But what we can do is address those different issues in our code to allow for more residents to not just expand their driveway, but actually build a driveway, even though it doesn't lead to a garage.
Correct, yes. And it's something, when you look at the history of this requirement, it was to discourage the overconcentration of vehicles on driveways when we lived in this world that a garage was for a vehicle. But as you can see with this ordinance this evening, the garage is now becoming a housing opportunity. And so we are now required to think literally outside the box now. And so, yes, it's definitely something we will look into. It's definitely something that's on my mind. I think as soon as we cross this bridge with the accessory dwelling units, I should be able to get a better understanding and come back quickly with some code amendment to ensure that we're able to address this. We'll continue also to work with my counterpart in Public Works as they're working as well with apron requirements, among other things. So definitely we'll look into this, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you. Any other
Thank you, Jose.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from any other council member? At this time, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Is there any public comments?
Mr. Mayor, I haven't received any public comment.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing then. Is there any other questions or recommendations that council has?
Mr. Mayor, this is Mark Murray. If I may provide just a few clarifications for council before they go ahead and place the vote here that I think would be helpful for a little bit fuller of an understanding of the ordinance and some issues that have been and questions that have popped up. With your permission, first, the distinction between the accessory dwelling unit and junior accessory dwelling unit, or JADU, can be seen in the picture, as previously clarified. By definition, a junior accessory dwelling unit can only be located within a single family dwelling. So if a conversion of a garage or accessory building or on a multifamily property, none of those would qualify as a junior ADU. Those would have to be an ADU. And so that is the main distinction between those. And
would you mind restating that again? I just want to, I want to be clear on what you just said.
Absolutely. So by definition, a junior accessory dwelling unit is a converted unit within a single family dwelling itself.
Okay.
Whereas an ADU can be, like was mentioned previously, can be detached, as in the slide on the screen. It can be attached to the current primary dwelling. It could be also within or a conversion within the main unit as well. So that is the main difference between those things. And then once you have that distinction made, then you have the different requirements for each one, such as the different size limitations, different kitchen requirements, and whatnot.
Okay, thank you.
As far as the parking requirements go, I know there's like everywhere, the parking is a concern, and to just make sure that we're clear on a couple of things. As far as the inability to require replacement parking for the conversion of a garage or carport or another parking structure, that it's only the replacement parking that cannot be required. However, the unit itself becomes an ADU, and parking can be required for that ADU unit that is now created. And so it's not getting rid of all parking altogether in that situation. It's minus the replacement parking, but adding at least the one parking space for the ADU to be required. And then as far as the parking on extended driveways or extending the driveways, creating driveways, I am not familiar with the ordinance or the code section that was being discussed necessarily, but as far as parking for ADUs specifically is concerned, within this ordinance, one of the sections speaks to the location of required parking. And so the city has the ability, according to this ordinance, to not only require parking for an ADU, but also to require a specific location, and the locations are provided in an order of preference. And starting with a garage or carport would be ideal. An uncovered space in the driveway would be next, and so on and so forth. And within those possible locations, at least, are within within setbacks on the property. So it will probably have to interplay with the rest of the code as far as exactly when and how that's going to be applicable. But the way that, just at least want to make sure everybody's aware that the way the ordinance is set up, that option is available as it stands.
Thank you. That does help.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Jose, can you please put on the slide with your recommendations? Okay, so at this time, staff, they're recommending to conduct a public hearing to consider public testimony and acknowledge the project as exempt from CEQA and conduct the first reading of this ordinance. Is there a motion?
I would move to approve.
There's a motion. Is there a
Second,
second?
Mr. Mayor.
There's a second. Can I please get a roll call?
Councilmember Guimedo,
Yes.
Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Sawyer,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Reboyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Altamirano.
Yes. Motion is approved. Thank you.
And I will read the title of the ordinance. The ordinance of the City Council of the City of Commerce repealing and replacing section 19.07090 second units with section 19.07.090 accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units, and making corresponding amendments to Title 19 zoning of the Commerce Municipal Code to comply with recent changes to state law related to accessory dwelling units, in order to encourage building of such units to combat the housing crisis in the state of California.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to item number 11. And who will speak on item number 11?
I will be speaking as well on this particular item and will be sharing my screen once again. Okay, just double checking to make sure my presentation is coming through. It looks the same almost. I apologize.
Okay.
Okay, so this is item number 11 on your agenda this evening. This is another code amendment, I should say, as it relates to the section of the municipal code, the zoning code, that regulates temporary use permits and special use permits. So why are we bringing forward this particular code amendment? I've been studying a lot regarding COVID-19 challenges to the business community while trying to, interlace our zoning code. And what I'm looking for with this particular code amendment is to look for a possible way to allow for a streamlined approach to aid both existing businesses while maybe trying to provide an incentive to establish permanent businesses in the city. This code amendment was was an effort that I looked at as I went on ahead and talked to some of my counterparts in other communities to see how they are addressing their need to keep their businesses going while at the same time being quick and efficient. And so one item that my counterpart suggested is that they get a lot of bang for their buck with the use of like the special use permit processes or the temporary use permit processes within their respective communities. And so I think this particular code amendment is going to allow me to, at minimum, address this ever-evolving issue, especially as we try to address COVID-19. Here, you can kind of see a little bit of what I read in the news practically almost every other day. Some of the items that jump out at me are really the second wave of infections following the lifting of the stay-at-home orders. Really put a crimp down on a lot of businesses, right, that were already struggling through the first wave. But when that second wave hit, there was just an immense challenge. And so what we're starting to see now are some businesses may close down for good because they don't have the flexibility or the ability to, morph to the ever-changing state as well as the county requirements to ensure, one, we're keeping people safe, and that we're providing the appropriate social distancing requirements. But all that, still trying to figure out, well, how the heck am I going to comply with my local jurisdiction zoning code? And so, as you can see, I'm trying to do my best with this particular code amendment to just allow for that kind of expedited sort of review process. So what does it mean? So I talked about these two sections of the code related to temporary use permits as well as special use permits that are governed under Chapter 19.39 of our Commerce Municipal Code. And what I would like to do is take these two sections and expand the language to include provisions that allow us that during an emergency situation and on a case-by-case basis, we can apply the approval process to go beyond 30 calendar days and up to a year, while allowing an applicant the opportunity to apply for an extension if such emergency exists. So our code today allows folks to apply for temporary use permits and special use permits, but again, they're capped at 30 days. And so that's a challenge both from a processing standpoint here at City Hall, as well as with the ever-evolving requirements that we have to comply with, again, that are being handed down to us. We do believe that this code amendment will allow us, again, to fast track and expedite. And so with that, we took this item to the Planning Commission so that they can consider it. We did get a positive result, which I was thankful for. And the Planning Commission was recommending and suggested, let's ensure that we have the ability to fast track the process and avoid or try to limit the red tape to help out our existing businesses while at the same time trying to generate new business. So with this particular code amendment, we believe that it's going to allow for the rapid deployment of services within our department, and it's going to allow us to better serve the community while trying to be economically relevant, especially during this pandemic. The closures with the casino, for example, they really are putting a crimp on us here at City Hall. And so I just want to make sure that I have some sort of, something of an arsenal in our toolkit here as we try to help businesses out. And so I feel this is kind of the start of probably a few other code amendments that I may explore in the short future, but I feel like I'm getting a lot of value with this particular code amendment. So with that said, what we're asking is that we conduct a public hearing to consider public testimony, acknowledge that the project is exempt from CEQA, conduct the first reading, or I'm more than willing to consider alternative recommendations. As of the time of my presentation, I did not receive any letters of complaints or concerns regarding this code amendment. With that said, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. I think this is coming at the right time. There's been business owners reaching out to City Hall, probably reaching out to some of the council members. They've been reaching out to me and asking for something like this. I'm glad that you're doing it. I also saw there's several cities already doing this, so I'm glad that you're ahead of the game. Is there any questions or comments from our city council? Well, it doesn't look like we have any questions. And Jose, can you go back to your recommendation?
Of course.
Okay, so then there's going to be a motion to conduct a public hearing to consider public testimony and acknowledge the project as exempt from CEQA and conduct the first reading of this ordinance. Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion.
Second.
There's a second. Can we please have a roll call?
I just wanted to acknowledge, Mr. Mayor, that we didn't receive any comments for the public hearing.
I was about to go there. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. So it's open and it's closed. So we need a roll call, please.
Councilmember Argumedo,
Councilmember Argumedo, you're on mute if you're voting.
Sorry about that. That was a yes.
Councilmember Mendoza,
Yes.
Councilmember Soria,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Boyer,
Yes.
and Mayor Altamirano.
Yes.
And I
Motion.
will read the ordinance title. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of California amending Division 11 temporary use and special permits of Chapter 19.39 Administration of the Zoning Ordinance of Title 19 Zoning of the Commerce Municipal Code to expand language as it relates to the intent and purpose of temporary use and special use permits.
Thank you. Okay, now we'll move on to city council reports. Councilmember Argumedo.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's see, I don't have much to report. I did want to report on the Modelo project meeting that was held at Veterans Park. I just wanted to thank the developer, Adrian Comstock, and his entire team, and also our team as well in putting the meeting together, doing all of the outreach to get all of our community involved in participating in the meeting, and also giving them the opportunity to once again hear about this project, and so they can take a look at it and see what it means to the community. And I'm hoping that they continue to provide additional input or issues or concerns that they may have with the project. I still have my reservations related to the number of units that we're putting up in that project area. I also have concerns with the number of homes that are being made available for sale to residents. I really think that number needs to be higher. And I'm also concerned with some of the issues related to traffic in the whole area there. I know that they've made some presentations related to some mitigating measures that they've presented, but I'm still concerned about overall the size and scope of the project, and I want us to continue to engage the developer in making sure that in the end we have a good, positive project that we can all be proud of. But I do want to thank everybody that was there. I'd like to thank our council member Mendoza, who was also present at the meeting. And I'm sure that the video will be made available as was requested earlier, I believe, in one of our earlier meetings to be shared with the rest of the council. And I think it would be, it would be good for each of you to look at it. I didn't get any feedback on the second meeting because there was 2 meetings, and I was there for a little while after the meeting. I didn't see that many people coming by to attend the second meeting, but maybe our Jose Mejia, can report and let us know actually if there was how the attendance was for the second meeting. That was what I had to report on that. I also wanted to also let you all know, and you guys are probably aware from some of the postings that my daughter, myself, that we've made related to my sister, Hilda Argumedo. I'm happy to report that my sister had been, I'm happy to report that she's been found as of yesterday. She had been missing for about 2 weeks, and she suffers from schizophrenia. She's had this condition for many, many years, and she's been in and out of different institutions that have tried to help her. And it's an ongoing battle. You have to continually be on different types of medication to control this condition. And unfortunately for her, she was off the medication, and I think that was a contributing factor in her walking away from the facility where she was, which led to her, not all of a sudden she went missing. But I want to extend my sincere thanks and gratitude to our local sergeant, Larry Villarreal, who, when I found out about the situation after exhausting some of our time and going out there looking for her, because on 2 previous occasions I was able to locate my sister. And so I'm thinking, hey, I'm going to find her. Yeah, she just went, and, we'll be able to find her. But that wasn't the case. Now I'm getting concerned because time is a ticking, and every day that goes by, I'm concerned that, with the weather out there and her not really wearing proper clothing and stuff, I was concerned that, hey, or just in general, danger out there with being, in contact with the wrong people, or just the COVID-19 situation. In some cases, I know that she was out there without a mask, and so I was concerned with all those different factors, right? But I wanted to thank our local sergeant, Larry Villarreal, who I contacted, and immediately he was able to get the support of our captain, Rick Mejia, who was also very supportive, and they contacted the Major Crimes Bureau, and actually They actually were very helpful. I'd like to thank all of them because they really made a difference. They put a lot of effort in looking for my sister out there. Even though, I mean, they were out there in the general area where we thought she was, and they were very helpful. But I did want to mention Detective Jose Mejia, who was very helpful, Detective Stephen Kays, and also Detective Matthew. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name properly, but I think it's Pereira. They were very helpful and very responsive to following all the leads that were coming in. I just want to thank them from all of our family for all their efforts and putting resources and helping us with that. I also want to thank my daughter, of course, Lori Argumedo, who was relentless out there. And also we had a Commerce resident, Roberta Cruz, who also came forward. She's a mental health service provider who also lent a hand and was very helpful. There was people that actually went out to help in looking for our sister. And I just want to say thank you. We're very happy that she's been found, and I'm working to try to get her the help that she needs. And again, thank you all. Concludes my report, ma'am.
Thank you, Igor Armenta. We're glad that your sister was found, so thank you for that message. Councilmember Mendoza?
I want to begin by thanking Councilmember Argumedo for giving us an update. Happy to hear that your sister's been found, and I can understand you missed a lot of your reports because you're feeling, but I'll mention you on some of the reports where you attended with me. I know what you're going through. I'm going to begin with first thanking the employees. Again, I can't underestimate what you guys are doing to save our city, our budget, the impact that you guys are taking, the pay cuts, the things you guys are giving up. I think you guys are doing it because you not only believe in the city, you believe in us. The city council is doing what we can to try the least effect on you guys, on your jobs, on your salaries. Again, I can't say enough. Thank you for helping us get to where we got tonight. I also want to say thank you to our staff. Today was the first day of day camp. My son, Brandon Mendoza, and my daughter, Leilani, after all the years that we lived here, this is the first time they're attending a day camp program, and they came back home very excited. I'm also going to take the opportunity to wish my son, Brandon Mendoza, a happy 9th birthday. Hope he's happy that we took him out to San Diego this weekend, and basically this was his weekend for his birthday gift. And he was able to share the weekend with a couple of his cousins and both of his grandmas. I want to continue by saying that I want to thank Mayor Pro Tem Rebollo and Councilmember Hugh Argumedo for joining me in downtown in the Hall of Justice. I've driven through that building many, many times and never knew what it was. And when we went in there, we had the opportunity of not only meeting the Sheriff Villanueva, we also had our Sergeant Villarreal, Larry Villarreal, and our Captain Richard Mejia. And we had a 2-hour meeting with our community. And as a matter of fact, one of the questions that caught my attention from one of our residents was a resident that lived up on Greenwood Avenue, and she was talking about the RV. So I'm hoping that she was watching our meeting and sees that we're going to be able to enforce the RV parking as of September 1st, and how since July the 14th we were working on those signs and everything to get ready for the enforcement. Also, I want to talk about I didn't speak about the last item when it came to the special permits. I wanted to save it for the council report. I know I've been getting a lot of good response from our residents. I started going on a media blitz on our Commerce restaurants here. It started a couple of weeks over at Lucky Guys. Drove by, seen them putting up some signs, and I figured, you know what? Let me come buy me my favorite breakfast burrito, and also go ahead and do a little commercial for them. And it went very well. We continued it. I was up at Veterans Park. My wife let me know on a morning where I couldn't find anywhere to go eat. As a matter of fact, I had breakfast with former mayor, former council member Jesus Cervantes, and we were over at Ozzy's Diner, and they were also providing curbside dining. Recently, last night, we did one for, we went out as a family, and I've always been hearing a lot about the curbside dining over for El Saggio, and I figure I'll take the time to go out there and, again, have dinner and put out a couple of posts out there. I'm getting a good response from the community. They're happy to know that these restaurants are open, that they're providing curbside dining, and also, we're happy to consume and let our residents know, come and support our curbside dining. Also, the project, he did remember, Councilmember Argumedo, thank you for joining me at the Modelo project. I know I wasn't there last year. We were in San Diego for my mom's birthday, so I couldn't make it last year. This year, I made it a priority to make sure that I went to this meeting first before I took off to San Diego. Again, thank you. I think Councilmember Argumedo brought up the concerns that we have, so I'm not going to repeat them because I believe those are the concerns of the whole council, and not only the council, but the community. I want to go ahead and just finish by letting you guys know that I don't know if recently you guys have seen me with glasses. I'm hoping that some of you keep me in your prayers tonight. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to have surgery, a surgery that I've been waiting for over a year. So not only am I excited, I'm nervous, I'm a little bit scared, but more excited than anything. But again, I wanted the community to know that hopefully if everything goes well in my surgery, I might not be wearing glasses again, even though I do like wearing the glasses. Again, thank you for all the support that you've shown when we're out there eating at the restaurants in Commerce. Also for the support, I reach out to the restaurants and let them know I did a small commercial, and they tell me people are coming out. I want to end by saying that there was a comment that went on Facebook regarding Stevens Steakhouse closing down. I want to verify, make sure everybody knows it was misinformation that went out there. I think Jim is confirming that he will be opening soon, and I'm excited to go out there, have one of their steaks, and hopefully do another commercial out there. Thank you very much for allowing me to give my full report, Mayor. And good night. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Mendoza. Councilor Soria?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had the opportunity to participate in the Modelo project via Zoom on Saturday morning. So it's definitely a large footprint. It's something that's unique that we're looking to bring to the city. Definitely, it's a large footprint. It's not something that folks are accustomed to, but I'm looking forward to that project and the successes and just the impact that it's going to bring to our community. We really do have the opportunity to provide some regional change and tap into some regional revenue streams as it relates to economic development and housing. Again, it's a large impact, but I think the developer provided a really good presentation on Saturday, still along the same lines of what he presented a year ago. And there's been a lot of transparency. I appreciate the developer for also engaging with the community members, but community groups as well, to ensure that the issues that are concerns are being heard. They're not just being swept under the carpet, but I definitely look forward to these types of projects as, Commerce for many years has been static. We haven't had any progress forward. And we know that if we don't begin to move willfully, that we will have to move reluctantly because the state is making some mandates and some requirements. So the Modelo project, again, I think it was a great opportunity for the community to be able to see what's being presented, what's being proposed. And I think they made a really valid point because there has been some misinformation presented on that project that this project's already a done deal. Nothing's done with that project. This project was proposed as a standard industrial warehouse a few years ago, and this council collectively requested for the developer to provide a new vision and provide a new opportunity for something different there in that area, as we are looking to reimagine the city of Commerce. But we have to understand that reimagining does come with the need to have some very direct and intentional decisions to be made. So this is one of those projects that is within the scope of reimagining the city of Commerce. So again, I want to thank the developer and his team for really reiterating the fact that there still are decisions that have to be made on this project, but they are navigating the appropriate processes that we've set for them in hopes of bringing forward a quality project in the future. Again, I just want to wish our community well and ask that they continue to practice the safety measures that have been recommended. So this way we find ourselves in a better place and being able to reopen certain things sooner rather than later and find ways to restart our economic engines. August is a big month for me. I know that we do have another council meeting, but, you know, like one of my colleagues has mentioned, you know, his son's birthday is, wishes his son well. And I have a few folks that I want to wish happy birthdays to as well for this upcoming August. My little guy, Michael, my wife, Miriam, and my mom, Sandra. August is a busy month for me, primarily more for my checkbook, but want to wish them well and thankful that God's given us more years to spend together with quality time as families. Also want to send a birthday shout out to longtime resident and commissioner Steve Viesca as he celebrates his 51st birthday. Happy birthday, Steve. And that concludes my council report. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Rebollo? I'm sorry, Mayor Pro Tem Rebollo. And you're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually would like to give some time to my colleague, Councilmember Argumedo, who needed a little bit more time.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I appreciate that. You know, in thanking everybody, I left out my wife. I wanted to thank my wife, Jessa, because she's been very supportive through this entire process. And, you know, unbeknownst to everybody, right after work, I get home and hey, let's pack up the car, the kids, us, we're out there and we're driving around looking for my sister and stuff. So I wanted to thank her also. She's been extremely supportive, very helpful, and I appreciate that. And one last item, I want to extend my best wishes to my son, Brandon, who is going to be turning 18 years old on August the 14th. So best wishes and happy birthday to my son, Brandon. Thank you.
You're welcome. Just really quick, I would like to thank the community that joined me this Saturday as we participated in the Southeast LA Census Caravan, myself and many, 12 different cities participated in this caravan, and we all caravaned to each other's cities to promote the census. That is the reason why I was not at the public scoping meeting, so I'm looking forward to the video. But thank you to some of the members of this community, particularly Team Rebollo, for coming out and supporting us, to all those members who members of the community who waved to us from their front lawns. Thank you. The City of Commerce currently has a 65.5% response rate for the census. So I wanted to reiterate to everyone to please fill out your census, to remember that this is how our cities and our school gets funding. So please, please, please remember to fill out your census. If you need help, if you need information, please feel free to reach out to me. And we can even do it via phone call where we can walk you through the process. If you need access to a computer, the library just put out a information on computer use. Computers will be available at the parks. If you need that information, again, please reach out to me or to our library personnel for the information. But just please make sure to fill out your census. Just a reminder that starting to this Thursday, Friday, Saturday, there will be a drive-in movie at Veterans Park. I know that you had to register via online or phone call at Parks and Rec. So if you want to check to see if there's spaces available, please remember to do so. Remember to log in to story time with Josue. That story time is still happening at via the city's the library's Facebook and Instagram. And as my colleague mentioned, we were all invited to be a part of a town hall meeting with Sheriff Villanueva, our Captain Mejia, and our Sergeant Larry Villarreal. And during the town hall, we had maybe like 2 phone calls about the recent cruising that has been happening, affecting our Commerce Center. So this week, we, myself and our city manager met with our county representatives. So I just want to let the community know that, you know, we're doing everything possible to continue to stay safe and to address these issues. I want to take this time to thank our East LA Sheriff Station, particularly our sergeant, for really addressing these issues that were brought before us by these callers. So we're all definitely working together to address the cruising that has been affecting the Commerce Center. So with that, I wanted to wish my mom a happy birthday this Saturday. So it looks like there's a lot of August birthdays in the council. But, you know, I just wanted to wish my mom feliz cumpleaños. She actually celebrates 2 birthdays because it's August 8th and the 18th. You know, there's a lot of our parents that in Mexico somehow have 2 birthdays. So I will be wishing her happy birthday this Saturday and happy birthday on the 18th. So feliz cumpleaños, mami, te quiero mucho. With that, I just wanted us to 2 things to keep the families of the 7 Marines and 1 sailor who lost their lives a few days ago in that accident. I know that 4 of them were for California, and we actually, 1 was from our neighboring city of Montebello, 1 from Stockton, 1 from Corona, and 1 from Riverside. So there were 8 in total that lost their lives. So, you know, just remind everyone to keep those families in prayer. And also just there was a recent attack in Lebanon. So let's remember to keep our Lebanese brothers and sisters in your prayers as well. So that concludes my report. God bless everyone, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thank you. So again, I want to say that our family's happy that Hugo, that you found your sister. I do want to also again just tell employees that we're very happy to work in partnership with you guys. I'm excited about the Modelo project. I was able to listen in, and I do want both recordings, and we'll make it public. Tomorrow, I want to thank Vilco for setting up a meeting with the captain in regards to the racing and the spinning that was going on at Rosewood Park. And I want to thank the residents that turned in some videos, and hopefully we're able to capture some license plates so we can address them. And I know that they did catch one of them, but I'll find out tomorrow what they did. Our prayers do go out to Lebanon and those that have lost their lives. And I do want to say happy birthday to all the August babies. I want to say happy birthday also to my brother-in-law, and I want to say happy anniversary to my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. So that concludes my report. Meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.